today's video, I am going to be ranking every single NFL quarterback's chances of winning the MVP. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So for this video, I decided to break it down into 5 different tiers. The first tier being the favorites. Then we have the contenders, the dark horses. Then we have the players who have a long shot of winning it. And then lastly, players with no chance. We are going to do this in alphabetical order, beginning with Aaron Rodgers and ending with Tyler Shock. And let us begin with Aaron Rodgers, who I give a long shot grade. Now, Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old, and if this video was done 5, 6, 7 years ago, this guy would probably be one of the favorites to win it all. But at this stage of his career, he's now into his 40s. He's also on a new team. And let's be honest, this team that is supporting him offensively is not the greatest collection of talent. So there's maybe a chance, but it's a super slim chance. Hence why I don't have him as a 0 chance guy. Next up, we got Anthony Richardson, who I'm going to give, unfortunately, no chance. Is there a chance that he comes out next year and just blows everyone away? Maybe, but it's never going to be good enough to ultimately win a MVP award. To win the MVP, you have to be a special talent who is not just talented, but is actually able to translate his game to the NFL. And even though Richardson has the talent to be a MVP caliber quarterback, he has not been able to translate that to consistent success in the NFL. He also just cannot stay healthy, and if you simply cannot stay healthy, you have 0 chance of ever winning an MVP. So even though I am rooting for Anthony Richardson, I don't think he has a single chance of winning the MVP, especially not in 2025. Next up, we have Baker Mayfield, who I am going to put him in the contenders category. Now, in the contenders category, it means that I don't think you're quite yet the favorite, but I think you definitely have a chance of winning it. And in the case of Baker Mayfield, last year, he was in the MVP ballot. He was, I think, 11th in MVP voting. Arguably could have been a little bit higher had he just had a couple less turnovers. And I think that's ultimately the key for his success in 2025. If he can lower his turnovers down to a more reasonable amount, sustain the success on the field while also winning maybe 2 more games on the season. If this Bucks team goes 12-5, Baker has over 4,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns, and less than 10 picks, he is going to be in the conversation. Plus, I think there's a lot of people who would love to give Baker Mayfield this massive award for all the roller coaster things he's been through. So for me, he's not quite a favorite, but I definitely do think there is a slim chance, maybe not even slim, a reasonable chance that a guy like Baker Mayfield could actually be in the conversation. Next, let's talk about Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix is an interesting case here, and it's going to be the case for every single second-year quarterback that I kind of struggle with giving them the award because there is that ever-looming sophomore slump that has hit a lot of different quarterbacks. And when I say sophomore slump, it's typically not that the quarterback goes out there and just completely sucks. It's just that they don't take that big step like a lot of us like to predict that they will. And in the case of Bo Nix, I could see him having a very similar type of season from what he had last year in this upcoming season. I expect there to be a bit more struggles at certain points as defenses are figuring out his game, which could ultimately sort of impact his overall status as a MVP caliber quarterback. Now, with that said, I do think Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos will have plenty of success, which will allow him to be in the conversation, hence why he's a dark horse, but I can't call him a favorite, nor can I call him quite yet a contender. Maybe in his 3rd or 4th year, we can start having those conversations. Next up, we have Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy is another interesting case here. He's a proven quarterback who just got paid, but the offense surrounding him in San Francisco has gotten worse and worse every single year. Well, especially over the course of the last maybe 2 years. This year specifically, looking at this offense, there's question marks all over the roster. Brandon Ayuk looks like he's not going to be able to go week 1 and probably for the first couple weeks. You're looking at questions with Jawan Jennings and his contract. Christian McCaffrey had an injury last year that you're very worried about. The offensive line still has a ton of question marks on it. The only thing that you feel really confident in is that you have a decent quarterback in Brock Purdy, and George Kittle is one of, if not the best tight ends out there. The reason why I do have him as a dark horse, though, is that you have to have some level of faith in Brock Purdy. And if Brock Purdy can elevate that offense, especially with their really easy schedule, I think he could have the numbers and general team success to give him an argument to win the award. And I think unlike previous years, you really can't put the success on the talent around Brock Purdy. So if Brock has a season where he has similar numbers to what he had last couple years, maybe even a little bit better, the team wins 12, 13 games, which if you look at their schedule, it's actually kind of possible. and this team wins the division or makes the playoffs, then I think Brock Purdy will have an argument to be in the conversation for the award, hence why I have him as a dark horse. Moving over to Bryce Young, I'm going to put him as a long shot. Would love to be able to move him up on this board, but unfortunately, I've only seen like half a good season from Bryce Young. Now, with that said, if Bryce Young goes out there and adds on to what we saw late into last year, then maybe you could move him in the dark horse conversation. But I think his chances of making it to the MVP conversation is quite the tricky path. For starters, he has to start and play well for all 17 games of the season. Not saying he can't have a bad game here or there, but he has to be pretty darn consistent throughout the season. He's going to have to put up career highs in every single statistical category, which would probably be over 3,500 passing yards, well over 25 plus touchdowns, as well as keeping the interceptions to a minimum. I think the biggest thing, though, that would give Bryce Young an argument for MVP is if this Panthers team can make the playoffs despite the overall talent not being particularly great. The way that Bryce can get in this conversation is if he elevates this team around him so much so that they either win the division or they make the wild card. If they can do that, then Bryce will have an argument for this award, but I don't think this Panthers team is quite yet ready for a playoff run, so I don't think there's a really good shot of this happening. But I think there is a path. It's just a very small path. It's a very small window for them to actually get this award. Next up is Caleb Williams, and I'm going to put him in dark horse, but I'm also seriously considering him as well for a long shot. So if you're kind of upset about the dark horse, just know that he's like in the back end of it, like he's really close to being a long shot. The only reason why I do give him that slight nod into the long shot category is this Bears team has so much firepower on the offensive end that if he can get a rhythm going early, this offense could be really, really good, and it could give a guy like Caleb Williams the chance to maybe have an argument for the award. Now, I do think the path is smaller than some of these other guys who I have in dark horse, such as like a Brock Purdy, for example. Like, I think Brock has a better chance than a Caleb Williams by a pretty sizable margin, but I still think Caleb has a, relatively okay chance of this actually happening. For Caleb, he's going to need to have a great year this upcoming season from start to finish. He needs to have a good connection with Ben Johnson, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze needs to have a good year. Colston Loveland, Luther Burden could have good years too. And if they can get this offense, especially the passing game, going, I do think Caleb can actually put up the numbers to stack toe-to-toe with most other quarterbacks out there. Like, if you tell me that Caleb Williams ends the year off with almost 4,000 passing yards, over 28 touchdowns, and keeps the interceptions less than 10, that really wouldn't shock me that much. The one thing that is going to actually kind of hurt Caleb Williams in his conversation is the Ben Johnson effect. I think there's going to be more people that are going to want to give Ben Johnson credit for turning around the Bears more so than Caleb. So I actually think Ben Johnson has a better chance of winning a Coach of the Year like award over a guy like Caleb Williams getting the MVP. Now, for Caleb to win this award, he is going to have to, one, make the playoffs, have a special year, and probably keep the media stuff to a minimum, because I know a lot of people don't like the guy. This one is also a bit of a long shot, but I'm going to put him just like towards the back end of dark horse. Next, we have a rookie in Cam Ward. As good of a rookie quarterback as Cam Ward might be, I don't think there's a chance that he wins this award. We just saw last year Jaden Daniels have one of the best rookie quarterback seasons we've ever seen, and he did not even really come close to winning the award. I look at a guy like Cam Ward, and I sort of say the same thing. He's not going to be better than Jaden Daniels, so if Jaden Daniels couldn't win the award, then Cam Ward probably won't win the award either. Now, if Cam can lead the Titans to a playoff spot and just have a fantastic year, maybe it's possible, but I think it's more likely he'll win like Offensive Rookie of the Year. Next, I got CJ Stroud, and I'm going to put him in the contenders category. Now, kind of like when I mentioned with Caleb Williams being in the back end of dark horse, I'm going to kind of do the same thing here with Stroud. I don't think Stroud is one of the top contenders, but I do think he is a contender. This Texans team is pretty dang loaded with talent, so they're going to have the team success. They'll probably win their division. They'll make the playoffs. And if we assume Stroud has a bit of a bounce back year from, I don't want to say a down year, but not the greatest year in 2024, and he looks a bit more like that rookie quarterback we saw and just a lot better version of him, then I think he'll easily be in the conversation. For him to get to this award, I think he'll need 4,000 passing yards, probably well over 28 touchdowns or so, and keep the interceptions to less than 10. With Stroud being a household name and a lot of people people rooting for him, he'll have the argument over a couple other quarterbacks out there. Plus, this Texans team might be competitive next year, and if they can enter into some actual Super Bowl contention, then I could see a world where Stroud does actually end up winning this award. The unfortunate part for Stroud is I still look at that offensive line and have a lot of questions surrounding it, so I think that will make his job harder, but if he can kind of overcome that, then I think Stroud has a very good chance of winning this thing. Next up, we got Dak Prescott. You guys can see I am a Dallas fan, not just the Mavericks, but also the Cowboys, but I'm also going to be pretty realistic here. I'm going to give Dak Prescott the dark horse. Starters, he's just got to stay healthy. These past 5 or 6 years, Dak has been healthy and then not healthy, then healthy and then not healthy. Last year, he was not healthy, so we'll see if he can bounce back and stay healthy for the entire season. That is one reason why I have him in dark horse. The other reason, I do worry about this running game and this offensive line, so that might put more pressure and make life a lot harder for Dak. But for also those same reasons is why I do think he actually has a chance of winning the award, but I don't think he's quite in the contenders category. Let's not forget 2023, Dak Prescott was second in MVP voting. If you ask any Cowboys fans, they'll probably tell you that every single day. But it is true, Dak was second in MVP voting, and that was also with not a great offensive line, nor not a great rushing attack either. So in 2025, he's going to get the ball a lot. They're going to pass the ball a crap ton to their new weapon in George Pickens and, of course, CeeDee Lamb, and Jake Ferguson just got paid too. So this is going to be a very pass-heavy team. And if the Cowboys can make it to the playoffs with, let's say, a 10 to 12 win record, I think Dak Prescott will have the conversation because we know he might have the stats. It's just going to be about the team success factor. Ultimately, though, there's a couple other guys that I think have a better chance than Dak, but I do think Dak has a dark horse chance of winning it. Next up, we have Drake May, and I know there's a lot of buzz for him heading into this season, but I still think this Patriots team is 1 or 2 years away from becoming serious threats in the AFC. Now, I could be wrong on this one, and I do think Drake May is in the upper tier of the long shots. Like, I think he has a better chance than some of the other guys we talked about in this and who we'll talk about here in a moment. But I couldn't quite put him above Caleb because while Caleb has all this talent around him, Drake is on a roster that is still growing and developing. Yes, you added a Kyle Williams and a Stephon Diggs, a Travion Henderson, and a Will Campbell. That was a massive, couple of additions, but the offensive line still has some holes around it. I still think they need another receiver. I'm also a little bit worried about what the tight ends look like. I don't think the tight ends are particularly special. Plus, you have a new coaching staff, and you're on a team that is in a division that the Patriots will likely not win. I also think for Drake May to win this award, he's going to have to make the playoffs. And as of right now, I don't think the Patriots will be making the playoffs. So is there a chance they make the playoffs and Drake May can enter into the conversation? It's potentially there. I do think it's a bit of a long shot though. Next up, we got Geno Smith, and I'm going to put him in dark horse. Now, in order for Geno to win this award, a lot of things would have to go his way, but I do think there is the potential it could happen. For starters, Geno Smith is going to have a career year, both statistically and basically team success wise too. You'd have to get the Raiders to the playoffs, which I think there is a chance it happens, though I think it's not the likeliest thing to happen because that defense is worrying. But you do have a veteran head coach, you have a veteran quarterback, and I think there's a lot of things going for this team. And in terms of statistics, I think he'd have to have a really successful year, over 4,000 passing yards. For Geno Smith specifically, probably more than 30 touchdowns while keeping interceptions to a minimum. The reason why I have him in dark horse and not long shot is because Geno is a bit more proven than a lot of the other guys in the long shot category. And I have a lot of faith in Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers. Because I have so much faith in those guys, I do think it could elevate the chances of a guy like Geno Smith. I know by technicality, JJ McCarthy is not a rookie, but I'm going to call him what he basically is. This is essentially the rookie year of JJ McCarthy. And I think the same argument I had about Cam Ward also does apply to JJ. Now, I will say, compared to Cam Ward, JJ has a much better roster around him, but I think you're going to see the argument, if JJ has success, that Kevin O'Connell should be given the credit more so than a guy like McCarthy. Now, is there a chance? Maybe, but I'm going to take the same principles I said with Cam Ward. If Jaden Daniels in his rookie year couldn't win it, I don't see a path for JJ McCarthy. Next up, I got Jalen Hurts, and he's going to be my first favorite of the video. Now, Jalen Hurts is a bit of a hot topic right right now because of all the Cam Newton versus Jalen Hurts conversations going on out there, but let's keep it what it is. Jalen Hurts has been in MVP conversations for the last 3 to 4 years, and even though he hasn't won the award, he's been around that bubble of winning this award. And I think part of the reason why I think he could win it this year, number one, they have the team success factor already down. He's won a Super Bowl. He has a great roster around him. I think the second reason why, I think we could see an offense that is a bit more balanced and isn't so focused on running the football with Saquon, because I do think there is a world where this team wants to keep Saquon healthy for the entire season, which might put the ball a little bit more in Jalen's hands, which could add to his rushing totals, his passing totals, his touchdowns. I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts throw probably a lot more than he has the past 2 years, which I think will be a good thing for this Eagles offense, and I think it will be a great thing for Jalen Hurts' MVP chances. Now, yes, you could create the argument that Jalen doesn't deserve the award because he has Saquon, AJ, Smitty, Dallas, and one of the best offensive lines, but at the same time, Lamar Jackson has won the award with a lot of talent too, so has Mahomes and even Josh Allen last year. So I don't think that argument will be used too heavily against him. I do think Hurts could be in for a big year that puts him in the favorites. Now, for the favorites, he's definitely the least favorite of my favorites in this video, but he is at least a part of my favorites. Next up, I have Jayden Daniels, and I'm going to put him in contenders. Now, I want to say this. He is the front of the line in the contenders, so damn close to being a favorite. But as I talked about with some of the other sophomore quarterbacks, I do always have in the back of my mind that the potential for I don't want to call it a slump, but a form of a slump could hit a guy like Jayden. Jayden was so good in his rookie year that I hope for his sake he can improve upon it from last year. But I do think there's always the chance that he takes not a step back, but he just doesn't take a big step forward that would allow him to win the MVP. Now, if I am wrong, and if Jayden and all this new pieces around him end up really working out well for this Commanders team and they win 12, 13 games, Jayden has similar success to last year, but has a bit more passing yards, a bit more touchdowns, and can keep the interceptions to a minimum, then yeah, he's going to be one of the favorites to win it all next year. But because there is that ever-looming sophomore slump that could hurt Jayden Daniels a little bit, again, I don't think he's going to be shitty next year or trash. He'll be awesome, but will he be awesome enough to win MVP? Not sure, but he's for sure in my contenders category. If I had to put like a what number is he there, he's probably like the 5th or 4th guy who I think could win the award. Next up, Jared Goff. He's been around the bubble, but never in any sort of serious conversations. I think if there was ever a time for Jared Goff to win this award, it would be this year, because now you don't have the excuse of giving Ben Johnson all the credit. Yes, he still has a super talented team around him. Gibbs, Monty, Amon-Ra, Jameson, one of the best offensive lines. I understand that. But a lot of the credit for this Lions offense has gone to Ben Johnson. Now, if Jared Goff has similar production he had last year, maybe even slightly better, the credit will not go to Ben Johnson, probably not Dan Campbell either. It's going to go to probably Jared Goff. And so if Jared has similar success to what he had last year with maybe slightly better numbers, Jared should easily be in the conversation for this award. Now, I think unlike some of the other quarterbacks in the favorites category, Jared does have a bit of a stigma of being a system quarterback, which I think could hurt his chances. But if we're looking at it objectively, I do think Goff has a chance for sure. Joe Burrow, this guy is, for me, probably my top favorite in this video. Joe Burrow has everything going for him. Last year, honestly, he was probably the most impactful and important quarterback on the football field. But because the Bengals did not make the playoffs, it's probably why he did not have a better chance of winning the award. I personally thought that he was just so awesome last year that if that team won 10 games, Joe Burrow should have been given the MVP. It should have been delivered to his doorstep and should have been hand delivered to him, because that Bengals team was ass last year and Joe Burrow was carrying that team alongside Jamar Chase on their backs. And as we head into 2025, that Bengals team is still ass outside of Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and a couple guys offensively. So if Burrow can get this team to 10 plus wins, make it to the playoffs, and Joe Burrow has a similar type of year from what he had last year, I think he should easily win this award, and I think it should be about time we give him his flowers. Next up, I have Joe Flacco, but I don't really know what to say here with the Browns quarterback competition. So for this Joe Flacco thing, we'll just just kind of talk about Joe, but it also could represent the entirety of the Browns quarterback depth chart. Nobody has a chance of winning this award. Joe Flacco's 40 years old now. He might not even start for the full season. Maybe Shador gets a chance. Maybe Gabriel or Pickett gets a chance, but they'll come in mid-season and just not have the runway to make an MVP case. Yeah, so there's really no reason to have a conversation here. Joe Flacco, as good of a backup quarterback he's not an MVP caliber guy, especially not at 40 years old. Then we're right back to the favorites here, Josh Allen, who won the MVP last year. If he has a similar type of season this upcoming season, I could see him going for a back-to-back MVP run here, which I think would do numbers for his legacy. Maybe the only thing that could hurt a guy like Josh Allen in this conversation is the, voter fatigue from last year, but because he's only won one in his career, I think he easily could have the conversation. Next up, I have Jordan Love, and I'm going to put him in the dark horse. Now, he's kind of right in the middle. He perfectly represents a dark horse candidate because I don't think he's a favorite, nor do I think he's right now a contender, but I think he has a legit pathway to get there. Now, what is that pathway? Well, for starters, those damn receivers in Green Bay got to catch the freaking football. Matthew Gordon looks like he's about to go stupid this upcoming season because he can actually catch the football compared to these other guys who in their preseason game were dropping everything. So that's a big time concern. But if Jordan Love can lead this Packers team to a NFC North division title while having a career year in passing yards and touchdowns while keeping the turnovers to a minimum, I think he easily has the path to get there. Plus, he plays for a massive team in Green Bay that would love to give this guy the award. So I think he has the runway to get there. It's just that compared to other guys on this list, I think his path is a little bit less likely, hence why he's in the dark horse category. Next up is Justin Fields. I really want to buy into this guy, but I'm going to have to put him in the no chance. I think he could have a career year, but having a career year for Justin Fields does probably not mean an MVP. Now, with that said, if Fields can somehow win the AFC East and have his best year statistically, and he just looks like a night and day different guy, then yeah, give him the award, but that's just probably not going to happen. Next up, we have Justin Herbert, and frankly, he's actually kind of difficult to rank on this list, especially after the injury to Rashawn Slater. But I think that Rashawn Slater injury actually kind of boosted him up in my eyes from a dark horse to an actual contender. Now, the weird thing about Herbert is now that he's in this Harbaugh system, it's going to be a much more run-oriented team and not so much focus on giving the ball to Herbert, 30 times a game to see if he can make plays downfield. So because of that, I think the numbers could maybe not be the greatest. But because of that Rashawn Slater injury, you can't look at Herbert and the team around him and say that Herbert was carried by this offense. That has not been the case for years now. You look at this offensive line, it's a good offensive line still, but now there's a question at tackle. The receiving core has a bunch of questions too. But if Herbert can lead this Chargers team to a division title, which I think is totally possible, by the way, then I think he has a strong argument for this award, specifically if he has a great season statistically. I'm talking 4,000 passing yards, maybe 30 touchdowns and less than 10 picks, while leading the Chargers to an AFC West division title. If that happens, it's possible, and because I think there is a good enough chance it might happen, I'll put him in the contenders. Plus, I think Herbert has just been so close to cracking that upper echelon elite tier quarterback conversation, and this could be the year that he elevates the team around him to get into those conversations. Next up, we have Kyler Murray. He is sort of the enigma of the NFL. I don't really know what to think of Kyler because former first overall pick, has struggled with health. When he's been healthy, he's been pretty good, but never like elite or anything like that. If there was ever a year where Kyler could prove that he is the guy for the Arizona Cardinals, it would be this year. And I think the leading thing for him to enter into MVP conversations, and frankly, to enter into, great quarterback conversations, can he get Marvin Harrison Jr. going? Can Marvin Harrison Jr. get over 1,200 receiving yards and enter into that wide receiver one type of category? Because I think if he can enter into that category, yes, I just put a hat on. I know, terrible transition. I think if he can enter that wide receiver one category, you then have to give Kyler Murray his flowers. And if you can give Kyler his flowers, and if he has a career year and maybe leads the Cardinals to a division title, It's possible, but it does feel a little bit unlikely, hence why he's in my dark horse category. Next up, Lamar Jackson. He's already won the MVP award a few times. He was in the conversation, arguably should have won it last year. I personally would have voted for Josh Allen because I do have voter fatigue, and I don't care. Sue me. This year, though, there should not be any more voter fatigue for Lamar, and if Lamar has a great year like the Ravens expect him to have, and if the team makes it into the playoffs with a division title and 12 to 13 wins, and Lamar does Lamar things, you might as well go ahead and give the award to Lamar Jackson. Alongside Joe Burrow, I think Lamar is the guy who has the second best chance of winning it next year. Next up, Matthew Stafford. As much as I want to put him in the contenders category, I simply cannot trust his health. If I could trust his health, he would be a top contender for me because of how talented that offense is. But it does feel likely that Stafford and the Rams will probably play this season pretty safe and just make it to the playoffs and then have Stafford healthy then, which could cost him a handful of games in the regular season, which would probably hurt his chances of winning this award. But if Stafford is a go from week 1 and can manage to stay healthy, then this team has a really good roster that could elevate a guy like Matthew Stafford into the MVP conversations. But because I think him playing 17 games does not seem possible, I'll put him in dark horse. Next, I have Michael Penix. Now, this one is also kind of difficult. I know I talked about JJ being a rookie quarterback, and Penix in a lot of ways is kind of similar to JJ. But unlike McCarthy, Penix did play a handful of games last year, and so now he understands kind of the vibe and feel of the game, so I don't expect him to come out of the gates a little bit slow. For Penix specifically, this offense in Atlanta is loaded with talent, and I think Penix has such a live arm that he can get the ball out to a Drake London. He could swing the ball out to a Michael or to a Bijan Robinson. I think Kyle Pitts could have a great year. Yes, I know, the Kyle Pitts, drafted first overall in fantasy. I think Kyle Pitts could have a great year, and I think Penix has a chance. With that said, it is a bit of a long shot. I don't think that Penix has built up this aura around him to win this award, which I think will be something he has to build up this year. But if he can get Atlanta to win the division, have great numbers, it's possible. I just don't think it's going to happen. Next up, Patrick Mahomes. I have him as one of the favorites. Now, I know in the past few regular seasons, Mahomes has not been the Mahomes of earlier in his career where he was putting up ridiculous numbers. And in some ways, I do expect that to translate this upcoming season. I'm really not expecting Mahomes to go stupid out there because you have an older Kelsey, an offensive line that's a bit shaky, some questions at running back, and, we'll see if Rashee Rice is suspended or what's going on there. So there's a lot of questions surrounding Mahomes. But the thing is, it's Patrick Mahomes. And I know that might sound a little bit like I'm glazing here, but the NFL wants to give this guy as many MVPs as possible. And if Patrick Mahomes goes out there and, throws for 4,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and less than 10 picks, you might as well just go ahead and give it to Patrick Mahomes because they all want him to win the award. Next up is Russell Wilson. I'm going to put him in no chance. And honestly, it's not because Russell Wilson is not a good quarterback. He is a good quarterback. The simple fact for me is that Giants schedule is just absolutely brutal. And I don't think there's a chance in hell that New York makes it into the playoffs this upcoming season. And if they do, I don't think it's going to be because of Russell Wilson. I think it'll be because of that defense and probably because they throw Jackson Dart in there at some point because, frankly, Dart looked pretty damn good in his preseason debut. So because of that and because I do think Dart will start at some point next year, I think it ultimately hurts the chances of a guy like Russell Wilson. Next is Sam Darnold, and I'm going to put him in dark horse, but I'm also kind of leaning towards long shot a little bit. Now, the reason why I'm going to put him in dark horse is because I don't think last year was a fluke by no means. I do think Darnold is a quality starting quarterback in the NFL who I think for the rest of his career will kind of be similar to Geno Smith in a lot of ways, where he's a solid quarterback, will get the job done, but maybe doesn't elevate talent around him like, like the upper echelon guys. The thing for me that does put Sam in the dark horse category is I just love the offensive pieces around him. I think Kenneth Walker's really good. I think JSN is just one of my favorite guys out there. Cooper Kupp can get open. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is such a fun fit here. And then Elijah Arroyo kind of feels like this, this little puzzle piece that could be the perfect fit for this offense. The thing that does hold me back, though, is this offensive line. I still worry about the health of it, and can they stay healthy, and can they play up to level? But if this offense could stay in a rhythm, stay on track, JSN could be in for a big year, and I think Darnold could be in for a big one, too. Next up, we have Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence, to me, is like the epitome of a dark horse quarterback to win the MVP. He has everything kind of going for him, and he has the talent. It's just that we haven't quite seen it unlocked yet. So for me, that kind of makes him like the true definition of a dark horse quarterback, because after first overall, has shown flashes of success throughout his career, but has never had coaching stability. Now you give this guy who is ultra talented a excellent offensive minded head coach, which we'll see if he's a good head coach or just a good offensive mind. Regardless, you'll have a good play caller, two great weapons in Brian Thomas Jr. and now Travis Hunter, and a couple running backs that I think we'll see what they can get out of those guys. For me, the thing that does elevate Trevor Lawrence to that dark horse is just I believe in Liam Cohen so much. He made Baker Mayfield have his best year of his NFL career, and I think he could easily do the same here with Trevor Lawrence. And if you can get Trevor to be in a career year with all the hype that has been built around him, maybe we can build that up this year, and he might be a dark horse contender if that Jaguars team has a successful year this upcoming season. Next, I have Tua Tagovailoa, and unfortunately, I am going to put him in long shot. Now, I think Tua is a better quarterback than some of the guys in the dark horse category, but unfortunately for Tua, I have such a hard time buying into this Dolphins team, both offensively and defensively. And because I don't think this Dolphins team has a great chance of making the playoffs, I think it ultimately makes Tua's job a little bit harder. Plus, I think there is a bit of a stigma with the fans and with the media regarding Tua and his overall health. And I think that also does apply here too a little bit. I can't trust him to stay healthy for the entire season. So if I can't trust him, then how can I trust him to play 17 games and win the MVP award? I just can't do that. With that said, if Tyreek can have a bounce back year, get up to 1,500 receiving yards, and Devon Achane has a great year, the offensive line looks a little bit better, and Miami somehow wins 10 games, sure, Tua could win it, but I think that's a quite a heavy long shot. And unfortunately, we are ending on a low note here. Tyler Shock, who I think will be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. If he isn't, then it'll be Spencer Rattler, and Rattler also has no chance. Ultimately, I don't think the Saints are good enough to get a guy an MVP award. I think they're probably 2 to 3 years of building away. With that said, I do like the Saints offensive line though. But you let me know in the comment section below, who did I get right? Who did I get wrong? Let me know. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.